The image of a trembling 13-year-old on a global stage is burned into the collective memory of millions, but the person who walked off that stage seems to have vanished entirely. We are looking into the curious case of Courtney Hadwin, a performer who achieved the kind of overnight fame that usually guarantees a lifetime of stadium tour and endorsement deals. Yet, shortly after her 2018 explosion, the trail went cold. While the digital world moved on to the next viral sensation, industry insiders began whispering about a career that had stalled before it truly began. Was she another casualty of the child star machine, or was something more calculated happening behind the scenes? As of early 2026, the answers are finally beginning to emerge, painting a picture of a young woman who had to lose everything to find herself. The silence wasn't a failure. It was a tactical retreat from a world that wanted a caricature rather than a creator. In an industry that consumes and discards talent with clinical efficiency, Hadwin's disappearance was initially read as a collapse. However, internal reports from that era suggest a far more complex reality involving ironclad non-disclosure agreements and a deep-seated resistance to the Janis Joplin II marketing strategy that executives were desperate to implement. Friends close to the singer suggest that the pressure to conform to a specific retro-rock brand was suffocating, leading to a period of intense reevaluation that kept her out of the public eye for years. This wasn't a case of one-hit wonder syndrome. It was a young artist refusing to become a museum piece before she had even finished high school. The cost of this silence was high, as fans began to speculate about health issues or personal failures, but the 2026 data shows that this period of darkness was actually her most productive era for songwriting. But the bright lights of Hollywood often cast the darkest shadows, and for Courtney, the price of fame was about to become unpayable. The transition from a televised golden buzzer to a sustainable career is a path littered with broken dreams and legal filings. Following her run, Courtney was tied to some of the most powerful names in the music business, but reports now confirm a massive fracture within that inner circle. Our investigation reveals that by late 2024, Hadwin had effectively severed ties with the major label structures that initially sought to market her as a nostalgia act. Reliable sources suggest she was caught in a creative deadlock, where the industry's desire for another Joplin clone clashed violently with her own artistic evolution. This resulted in years of unreleased material and a public profile that dropped to near zero. The disappearance wasn't due to a lack of talent, but a refusal to sign off on a version of herself she no longer recognized. It was a high-stakes game of chicken with some of the most powerful executives in London and Los Angeles, leading to a total rebranding that only became public in late 2025. During these years of contractual purgatory, Hadwin was reportedly unable to release new music or perform under certain banners, a situation that has destroyed the momentum of countless other child stars. However, legal documents surfacing in early 2026 indicate a clean break was achieved, allowing her to retain the rights to much of her creative output, a rare victory in the high-stakes world of commercial music. This independence came at a steep financial price, with rumors suggesting she walked away from a multi-million-dollar multi-album deal to secure her autonomy. For a performer who started with nothing, this move was seen by some as professional suicide, yet it laid the foundation for the radical reinvention that we are witnessing today. The cage has been unlocked, but the world she is stepping into is vastly different from the one she left in 2018. While the industry claimed she was difficult to work with, the truth suggests a much more calculated liberation. By the time 2025 rolled around, the speculation reached a fever pitch, only to be met with the sudden release of Little Miss Jagged. This wasn't just an album, it was a manifesto of independence. Our team analyzed the production credits and found a shocking lack of big-name hitmakers, confirming that Hadwin had pivoted to a strictly independent model. The 2026 update on her career reveals a sound that is intentionally abrasive and deeply personal, a far cry from the polished covers that initially made her a household name. This shift has divided critics. Some see it as a brilliant move to secure longevity, while others believe she has permanently alienated the massive audience that fell in love with her younger self. However, the data from her 2026 UK club tour suggests a different story. She is currently filling venues not with casual fans of reality TV, but with a dedicated core following that values authenticity over artifice. The girl who once hid behind her hair is now standing center stage, owning a sound that is entirely unapologetically hers. The album's lyrical content dives deep into themes of being exposed and trapped, serving as a thinly veiled commentary on her experience with early fame. Musically, it blends elements of post-punk with her signature soulful growl, a combination that has garnered unexpected praise from indie rock circles that previously dismissed her as a television product. By 2026, the narrative has shifted from what happened to her to look what she's become. The transition from child prodigy to adult artist is the most dangerous jump in the business, and Hadwin has made it by burning the bridge behind her. The absence of major label backing means she lacks the massive marketing budget of her peers, yet her streaming numbers for 2026 show a steady, organic growth that many manufactured stars would envy. She is no longer chasing a top 40 hit, she is building a discography. But even as she finds her voice, the ghosts of her manufactured past continue to haunt her headlines. One of the most persistent narratives throughout Hadwin's career has been the accusation that her shy persona was a scripted performance for television ratings. These rumors, which surfaced almost immediately after her debut, suggested that her previous experience on The Voice Kids made her too professional to be the underdog the show portrayed. In 2026, we revisited these claims, looking at the psychological toll such accusations take on a teenage performer. Hadwin has largely remained silent on these controversies, choosing instead to let her work speak for itself. However, new reports indicate that the stress of these character attacks played a significant role in her decision to step away from the mainstream media spotlight. She wasn't just escaping a bad contract, she was escaping a narrative she never wrote for herself. The current 2026 tour features a performer who is noticeably more confident, suggesting that the shy girl was a phase of growth rather than a deceptive tactic. But in the court of public opinion, some remain unconvinced. The accusations surfaced during her height of fame that her father had coached every movement, including the nervous fidgeting, a claim that the family has vehemently denied. In 2026, we see a woman who no longer fidgets but instead commands the room with a fierce, deliberate energy. This evolution provides a retrospective lens through which we can view her early years, less as a con and more as a child struggling with the weight of global expectation. The viral nature of her debut meant that she was never allowed to grow up in private. Every mistake and every nervous tick was analyzed by millions. This investigative report finds that the 2026 version of Hadwin is almost a direct response to those early criticisms, someone so authentic and raw that the word manufactured no longer fits into the equation. She has effectively offed the old persona to ensure the survival of the artist. In an era of instant gratification, Hadwin is playing a dangerous, long game that few child stars survive. The financial reality of going independent in 2026 is a grueling one, and Hadwin's current trajectory reflects a radical downsizing. Instead of the private jets and arena tour promised by her 2018 success, she's currently seen traveling by van, playing gritty venues that mirror the rock and roll legends she admires. Our field reports from her February 2026 appearances show a stripped-back production, focusing on raw vocal power rather than stage gimmicks. This back-to-basics approach is a gamble that could either cement her status as a cult legend or see her fade into total obscurity. She has reportedly turned down multiple offers to return to reality television all-star specials, choosing instead to focus on building a legacy from the ground up. It is a path of high resistance, especially for someone who already had the world at her feet. As she moves toward the end of her current tour cycle, the music industry is watching closely to see if a performer can truly rebirth their career after the machine has already spit them out. The 2026 tour, titled The Unbound Circuit, has seen her playing to rooms of 500 to 1,000 people. A significant drop from the millions who watched her on television, but these are paying customers who are there for her original music, not a Janis Joplin cover. This shift represents a move towards slow-burn success, which is often more sustainable than the flash-in-the-pan notoriety of reality TV. We've observed that her merchandise sales and fan engagement on decentralized platforms are at an all-time high, suggesting a very healthy, self-sustaining business model. While she may not be rich by Hollywood standards in 2026, she appears to be free, which insiders say was her primary goal. The accusations of her being a has-been are being countered by a relentless work ethic that sees her in the studio or on the road 300 days a year. The final chapter of the Hadwin story hasn't been written, but the ink is no longer being held by anyone else. As we look at the state of Courtney Hadwin in 2026, the Golden Buzzer feels like an ancient relic of a different life. She has successfully navigated the most dangerous years for a child prodigy, avoiding the typical downward spiral so often seen in the tabloids. Instead, she has emerged as a case study in self-ownership. She didn't fail to become a superstar, she rejected the terms of that superstardom. Whether she will ever reach the same level of global recognition again remains a topic of intense debate among industry analysts. Some argue that her refusal to play the pop game has capped her potential, while others insist she is the only artist of her generation with the grit to survive a changing industry. For now, Hadwin seems content in the shadows of the club circuit, proving that fame is a choice and autonomy is the ultimate prize. The girl who shocked the world in 2018 is gone, replaced by a musician who is finally, for the first time, in total control of the microphone. In our final assessment for this 2026 update, it is clear that Hadwin has escaped the curse of the child star. There have been no ODD headlines, no public meltdowns, and no desperate attempts to cling to her 2018 image. Instead, there is a steady, deliberate construction of a brand that may not be big in the traditional sense, but is undeniably hers. The mystery of her disappearance has been solved. She wasn't lost, she was hiding until she was strong enough to come back on her own terms. The music world in 2026 is cluttered with clones, but Courtney Hadwin remains an anomaly, a performer who dared to say no to Simon Cowell and actually lived to tell the tale. As she prepares for her upcoming international dates, the industry is no longer looking for the shy girl from Durham. They are looking at one of the most resilient voices in modern rock. She may have vanished from the charts, but she is louder than she's ever been.